Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday morning. It is the 13th of September, and it's just after 6 o'clock. It's me and Ryan to take you through your morning this morning. We were going to have Lebang on, but she's got like load shedding, and that's back. Hooray! So at some point in the show today, we may also have some interruptions of some kind, but you know how it goes. We'll be all right. We'll manage. We'll pull through. We'll make it happen. We'll give you the interesting info. We'll give you the news, all of that stuff. Hope you are off to a good start today. I'm feeling human for the first time in a week. Yeah, a whole week. Because last Tuesday I started to feel really shitty, and I still don't know what it was. But did I mention yesterday, Ryan? I don't know if you weren't paying attention. Maybe I wasn't. But did I mention that I went to the doctor on Saturday morning and got look at you in the dark. I went and got an injection in my backside of cortisone, and I think it was cortisone, Voltaren, and some kind of antihistamine thing too. And the doctor just she said, this is the way to do it. Oh, right. Ryan's also got power issues, but it's going to be switching over in a second. So anyway, I had this injection, and it helped me get through the day on Saturday because I was I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. It seems like some kind of flu. Anyway, the doctor said that everybody is getting everything at the moment because we've got no immunity. Because the hand sanitizer and the gloves and the masks and all the other shit, people are just like they've got no immunity. So whatever comes around now, everybody's getting it. And I didn't really go to any huge trouble with, any of the sanitizer or social distancing or any of that stuff. So I can only imagine how much worse it is for people who really did follow all those terrible guidelines, because they are going to be getting so sick now. So she said it's some kind of edema virus. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, let's try and stay away from this stuff wherever you can. And if you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick, right? It's going to be now. And then hopefully you're good for the rest of summer. So I'm hoping that my week of absolute pain in the ass bullshit is worth a deposit on, not having to get sick this summer. Holding thumbs. If that's the truth for me, then I hope it's true for you too, if you have been sick. There's a lot of people who've been suffering over the last few days. So it's not just me sitting here moaning. But I promise you, I was buggered. On, what was it? Thursday or Friday? One of the two. When you have those ugly coughs where you you bend over and, oh my God. Anyway, all's good that ends well. And that's where we're at the moment. So Ryan will be joining us in a moment. We were going to, as I mentioned earlier, have Lebang on, but she's also got all kinds of power issues at home, thanks to this terrific government of ours and their excellent knack of running public utilities perfectly every time. They're really good at doing all the important stuff, like making sure that the things that we're already paying taxes for and that we then pay extra for in terms of utilities, that those things work. I mean, that's what gets a government a great reputation. That's what makes us all thrilled to be here. That's what makes us happy to hand over our tax money, knowing that they can run things properly. That's what I reckon. Anyway, so we've got a WhatsApp line, 071-783-6214. That's the number you can get hold of us on. If you want to join us on the WhatsApp line, it's very easy. You can do that ASAP. You can do it right now. You can drop us a WhatsApp and we get these messages. And important, Ryan will tell you, important that we keep them under 30 seconds. We will, yes, in words of Ringo Starr, no messages longer than 30 seconds will be read. We will delete them. We will delete them. They will go right in the trash. Keep it under 30 seconds. Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. That's what he says. Yeah, keep them short. I mean, we don't want podcasts, That's what this is.
And creative. We like creative.
You want them creative? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that Donald Trump one we got the other day.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'll admit that was good.
It's pretty decent.
So, yeah, I've got one or two here. We didn't even get to any. I don't think we played any of them yesterday, did we?
I don't think so. Not that I remember.
All right, let me see what we've got here. All right, let's take a look, and then we'll be able to figure out is going on here. All right, Monday. Here we go. Monday's voice notes. I've got for Friday. Hang on a second.
Oh yeah, there was some about Friday show when Gord was on.
Let me just have a look here quickly. Are these ones that we played?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Oh no, we played.
Oh, we got those.
Yeah, we played that one. It was
Gareth, how's it? Greetings from South Sudan. Just want to let you guys know that I was listening to you, Gareth, and Lepang and Flax ranting about.
Oh yeah, I heard that one as well. I don't know where the new ones are, Ryan. Maybe resend them to me.
Right.
But if you want to send us those, then the number's up on the screen now: 0717836214. Lots of stuff to talk about today. And we've also got the first episode of the new season of Blind History starting up today, which is awesome. I'm recording 2 new ones today with Anthony Medera as well, which is very, very exciting. And we're really thrilled to be pushing into season 7 of Blind History, which is bloody amazing. I can't believe we've put together this many shows now. If you think about it, it's like average 13 episodes a show, right? Let me take out my calculator because I'm so shit at this stuff. Oh, good. There goes my power too. So 13 episodes a season. We've done 6 of those already. That's 78 episodes, as far as I can tell, of Blind History. So we will be doing episode 79 then today, bringing in season number 7. Bloody fantastic. So how was your day yesterday? What did you get done, Ryan? How's things been? I didn't even speak to you over the weekend. Anything good?
It's actually my birthday today.
Happy birthday, dude. I didn't know it was today. Is it today?
It's today.
13th of September.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm in the 27 club now, so this is a new thing.
Oh, right.
And
well, you've got to make
I
it
got
out of the
bamboozled over the weekend. Yeah, I got to make it.
You got to make
it.
You don't want to just get to the 27 club. You want to survive it. Then you've really done well.
Yeah. No, I was like you over the weekend. I got hustled into a surprise party, which annoyed the hell out of me because I didn't see it coming.
Uh-oh.
And that's
friends of yours?
It was my family who started it first. So I think my sister organized it, and then I just didn't notice a lot of things until it all came together, and I was like, "Oh well, damn, this is happening." So on Saturday, my friend called me. He was like, "Come watch Apparently, we hosted the Sevens World Cup here in Cape Town."
Yeah,
so he's like,
huge.
So he's like, "Come and watch it." Well, and I don't really watch a lot of rugby or Sevens rugby per se, and so I was like, "All right." So I went to go watch it, and then he's like halfway through, he's like, "Oh no, we can go to your place and watch the rest of it." And I was like, "But I just I've just been here for 2 hours." And then I got here, and there was slowly little cues that like the night before that happened. Slowly everything came together, and then I saw a friend of mine who I never see, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so this party's happening." So I was like, I wish I could have just put an end to it.
The party that they have in Cape Town for this is huge. It's the most awesome thing. They always do this big thing at Cape Town Stadium, and then it turns into a big street party, and people go all over Cape Town. And I mean, it doesn't end early. It's one of those things that keeps going. It's just phenomenal. And Cape Town's good at these things. Like a bunch of my friends flew down for the weekend to be a part of that. And they said it's just the biggest blast. Everybody goes crazy. And it's for people of all ages, like the kids partying there, the old people. There's everybody in between. And it's just a really happy occasion for everyone in Cape Town to partake in.
Cape Town just sounds like such a vibe. Like I could just use a week in Cape Town. Oh, man.
You know what? I love Cape Town. I never say nice enough things about it because I always feel we have to prop up the rest of the country. But Cape Town is like a separate country. It really is. And
oh no, it is.
I was talking to a friend of mine who lives there, and he was like, "We don't get load shedding as much as you guys do up here. We have all this beauty around us all year round. I mean, listen, Cape Town winter's not great, but the rest of it is amazing. Now they're going into summer, which is just spectacular, and people live they live a better quality of life in Cape Town than they do anywhere else, which makes it really cool. Congo Chris says, Ryan, it's all downhill from here. 27 is the beginning of the end. There's some positive news from Congo Chris this morning.
That's fantastic. I got that speech on my 21st.
That it's all downhill?
Oh, yeah. They were like, this is as good as it gets. Only gets worse.
Lots of nice happy birthdays. Even our Simpiwe saying happy birthday, Ryan. That's
thank
nice.
you, Sims. Appreciate it.
Yes. If
fantastic.
only tourists could be protected. So many visitors got mugged at the stadium. Really? That's terrible.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's not good. And I heard a similar thing happened at the last game at Ellis Park. That there were also lots of people when they were walking out of the stadium who were mugged, had their wallets taken off of them or their phones or whatever.
That's the one stadium I kind of stay away from. Like, it's bad enough sometimes Nasrik you have to go to for all these concerts, but Ellis Park, especially if you have to park your car like so far down.
Oh, dude, yeah, you don't want to. Listen, if you're going to Ellis Park or to Nasrik, you'd just rather don't take a car, and you get your Uber and you only go out to meet the Uber once you know it's there, because you don't want to linger around.
Yeah.
People see. Like, the one thing you got to say about South African criminals is we are very opportunistic and organized. So if people see like there's a crowd gathering somewhere, or if they can tell that there's an event on, that's the excuse for criminals to get together and figure out how to rob everybody of their stuff. So apparently the new iOS 16 is out, which we were talking about just the other day. In fact, somebody mentioned it and said it's very cool. Here, Carol G. She says, great excitement. Apple iOS 16 is out. Interesting new features. Well, I haven't looked at it yet or downloaded it, but have you given it a try?
I did. I downloaded it last night. I was actually going to put it on our group, but then I was like, I know Greg won't even bother reading it. So you'll be the only one who sort of will get it. And some people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like a lot of people are on iPhones, but the ones who are not could care less. I mean, they get so bored that they probably stopped listening to us this morning just for even bringing it up. But I'm quite keen. I always like to see what they're doing and where they're going and what's new. So it's nice to get new kind of novel ideas and novel features on your phone. And apparently there's some very good things that they've brought out with this iOS 16. So let's see what happens. I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah.
I'll try it later today. Yeah.
The biggest part, I think, is trying to like make space for it to download, because it's like 3 gigs or 4 gigs or whatever.
Oh, so it's a huge file.
It's a huge file. So, but for me, I just had so many podcasts. I had 70 gigs of podcasts on my phone, just downloaded. They automatically download.
I know, but you have to go in there and clear them every couple of weeks. I have to clear out mine, because even though I've got quite a lot of storage on this phone, I just know I'm going to be a big shit if I let those podcasts gather. Podcasts and photos seem to be the two things that take up the most space.
And WhatsApp. Yeah. Oh, WhatsApp is still, I think it takes about 12 gigs of my phone. That's
huge. Monstrous.
I just don't want to go
so
to every
I don't know if you saw this. This is pretty hilarious. Everybody's talking about the death of the Queen and the new king and all the rest of it. But have you seen Charles's hands? Someone sent me this on, I think it was on Instagram. The Queen left the throne in his hands, and then they show us the Prince Charles's hands, which really look like chipolata sausages. That are he looks like he's got very swollen little chipolata hands. Not good.
Sure.
Hey, like
some people was telling me about this yesterday.
Do you think that's like bad circulation or something? What do you think's going on there?
It looks like it. Is that too tight?
Yeah, it looks like they're little sausages or even like condoms that have been overfilled with water.
That ring ain't coming off. That's all I'm saying.
No, that little signet ring of his is stuck there for life. I mean, that thing he'll have to cut it off of him. But that's bad circulation, right? I'm pretty sure that's what causes that. Maybe if there's a doctor listening or watching, that they can tell us what the hell that is. But Charles's hands, not great look. I mean, it's very unhealthy looking. Doesn't inspire me. So much.
The amount of memes that are coming out of this whole thing it's unbelievable. How quickly they just produce them is even.
Yeah, Ruth says it's heart or kidney issues.
Oof.
that he's got going on there.
Yeah,
Tabo
no,
says you guys are
this
mean.
yesterday.
You guys are mean. I don't think drinking tea will work for him. Is drinking tea when you have hands like that a bad thing? Old people swollen hands. He's retaining water. So everybody's got an opinion on this. But yeah, okay, all right.
Some people and I were talking about it yesterday.
Go on.
And we were just saying, like, it's the first time he's had to work since he's, first job at 72. Now he's got to do all this work.
There were some very funny memes about that over the weekend too. It's like, here's this guy, he's got to 73 years old, and now he finally got a job.
Yeah. So, oh man.
I actually listened to one or two of his speeches. He made a beautiful speech. I think it was it was either on the Thursday night or the Friday morning. I can't remember, one of the two. And he made this really lovely speech. And I mean, I've never been like the biggest Prince Charles or King Charles fan, but he does have a very good speaking voice, and he's got a deep kind of nice sound, nice sort of timbre to his voice, and he speaks very eloquently. I mean, you can say what you like about Charles, even if that's the only thing he's got right, and I don't think it is, but he seems to me to be a very, very articulate speaker. He's intelligent. There's no doubt he's intelligent. His father was a very, very smart man, as was the Queen. I mean, she wasn't an idiot. But he's read a lot of books. He knows a lot of what's going on. He has a decent education. He's met people from all over the world. He's traveled extensively. That stuff doesn't go nowhere. I mean, he's bound to have something to say, right? And he seems to have not put a foot wrong so far during this whole thing. Not that we're looking just to find fault, or that we think that he's somehow not going to screw it up. Everybody's going to make a mistake wherever, whenever, doing whatever kind of job, if they're under the kind of scrutiny that he is. But I think it'll be interesting. Propaganda says now he can't pick his nose anymore. Okay. Barry says, talking about podcasts and blind history, have you listened to Des Latham's History of South Africa? Fascinating. Now, what we learned in textbooks. Maybe you should get him on. I do want to get Des Latham in, and I have listened to that podcast. I've listened to about 3 or 4 episodes of it. I listened to he did a series of them on the Buffalo River and the Xhosa raids with the 1820 settlers. Yeah, and the English. Very, very interesting stuff. It's not, it seems to be almost like a chronological podcast. So he's doing it almost as, the unfolding story of kind of South Africa. And he starts it, I'm not even sure where the first episode is, but I came in there somewhere in the middle. And he seems to methodically go through it, which is cool. I just don't think it's for everybody. What we tried to do with Blind History is try to make it more interesting to non-history fans, because a lot of people aren't going to want to get into too much of the detail of the history, So I think maybe if you're really big on history, then Des Latham's, I couldn't, regard it more highly if that's the kind of thing you're into. You want to actually go through the history of it. But if you are looking for just something interesting for, give you a little bit of insight into something that you might not know before, then I don't think that it's the same as the kind of stuff that we're delivering in Blind History. It's a very different offering. So here are some of the voice notes. Take a listen to this.
G'day, Cliff Central team. It's Duds here in Oz. I just wanted to say that I'm very glad to hear Ben's positive comments about his trip to Australia. I was very keen to hear what he had to say about it, and I had a feeling that he was going to enjoy his time here. Just very glad that Gord didn't come on at the same time. Otherwise, Ben probably wouldn't have been able to describe and articulate his time here in Oz. So good on you, Ben, and thanks for the good show. Duds in Broome, Western Australia, signing off.
All right.
Cheers.
Very good. And he makes a good point. Like, if Ben had been on with Gord, there's no way he would have got a word in edgewise about Australia. He still had a lot more to say. I think we'll get to him and what he thinks of all of that, because he had some interesting adventures over there that he didn't get to tell us about the other day. But yeah, when Gord is on at the same time as anyone, it becomes the Gord show.
Oh man. On the weekend, I just tuned in on TV just to see the heralds because God made me so fascinated with the heralding, and I was like, I have to.
Yeah. Oh, right. You mean the guys who are making the proclamations?
Yeah. I saw them come out with the instruments,
Heralds.
and I heard them.
Heralds.
Yeah, the heralds. Sorry, herald. And I just thought I was like, God made this seem so fascinating, and I was like, I wonder if they do get leave days. He makes a good point.
How funny are those outfits? I mean, you see so many people now with these funny outfits coming out and wearing them. Like, you think, where's that person in that fucking Russian hat been the whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
With a long stick. And then there's someone with feathers in their hat, and there's someone who's wearing one of these tabards. There's someone who's got have you seen all the trumpeters? I mean, it's crazy. The English really roll out the whole, the whole
I love
show.
it.
No, it's great. It's fun to watch.
I'm such a sucker. Like at the office, everyone's so surprised I'm a royalist. But you know what? Before I even started working at Cliff Central, I listened to the blind history. Wasn't it about King George VI? I think you guys did. There was a couple podcasts from back then, and I was fascinated. And then there was a couple documentaries on Netflix, and I fell into it. I love it.
No, I found myself in bed last night, sort of watching some videos because I can't be sitting there in front of the TV the whole day watching whatever's going on because they repeat everything over and over and over again, and it just becomes ridiculous. So what I do is at the end of the day, I'll just go onto YouTube and I'll see whatever's because I've got all kinds of categories that I'm interested in. So there'll be news and there'll be stuff that's going on that came up mostly as news. And then I'll watch just bits and pieces of it rather than the whole thing. It's too much. Hamish, sorry, Ryan. No. Hamish says, have you listened to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History? Yes, it is awesome, but you really have to be a history buff and a history nerd to listen to it because Dan Carlin does these like 6 to 8 hour long episodes on everything. The last one he just did was on slavery. The transatlantic slave trade, which is really, really interesting. And the numbers are just staggering in that one. But you have to have unbelievable staying power to make it through. And you can't listen to Dan Carlin in one sitting. You have to listen to him over a period of like 7 or 8 days. And then you really get into it. It's amazing. Apparently, this is funny. Tracy says, Buckingham Palace requested that mourners please stop putting down marmalade sandwiches. And Paddington Bears is the other part. They said, please, we welcome flowers, but we do not know what to do with all these marmalade sandwiches, which are obviously going to go off in the sun, and Paddington Bears. So it's just sweet that people want to, leave their mark. They want to make an effort.
Some
they want
of
to
these cool facts have come out about this. Like I was told that she's been having marmalade sandwiches since she was 15 every day.
That's right. The Queen used to have a jam or marmalade sandwich every day. And we thought she was joking when, at the Jubilee, she did that little thing with Paddington Bear where she said she would eat a sandwich in her bag. Clearly, it was true. But that's interesting. There's also quite a lot to talk about today in respect of all the news. So let's get to some headlines quickly, and then we'll get into the rest of it. So first thing, apparently Eskom says it's focusing on lowering the high level of unplanned maintenance. Well, we'll believe it when we see it, right?
How much maintenance are you doing?
Ugh, dude, who the hell knows? But these guys, clearly not enough because it's still not working. So according to EWN this morning, this is the headline that they've just sent us. Struggling state-owned power utility Eskom said it was focusing on lowering its high level of unplanned maintenance. They held an urgent address on Monday outlining technicians' focus to bring more stability to the country's electrical grid. Load shedding was de-escalated to stage 3 on Monday and will move from stage 2 Tuesday. So hopefully it'll be better from today. Group Chief Operating Officer Jan Oberholzer said, the challenge that we have is that our unplanned maintenance is so high. We have 15,000 megawatts when we planned for 10,000, and to have 15,000 out is too high and unacceptable. You're telling us. Anyway, their general manager said that the utility's financial woes had a huge impact on its ability to perform planned outages. The funding, as it comes, will be very useful to ensure that going forward our outages are properly executed so that when we come back from our maintenance window, we find that our units are reliable, because some scopes were not done, says Matebula. Okay, More bullshit. It seems so random, right? Doesn't it seem random to you? One day it's off, one day it's on. Then we have weeks where we don't have to worry about it, and then suddenly it's off again.
I've become a lot like you, Gareth. Now I take it by surprise. I used to plan it every day, and now I'm like, if it's on, it's on. If it's off, it's off. It's frustrating, but
Yeah, the only thing
what must I do?
The only thing I have to do is be able to do this. And as long as, I've got like this UPS, which hopefully won't give up at the ghost at any time. But this thing works as long as I can do the show, then I'm happy. The rest, I'll move my life around. I'll make it work.
I just, we go to work and come back, and it's like we're at work all the time. We have power all the time in the office, but then it's like you get home and you're like, the one time you just want some power just to watch some TV or something, then they kick it off.
I know. It's terrible.
So,
the Queen's death has ignited a big debate over colonialism. And this is from ENCA. So from Kenya to Nigeria to South Africa to Uganda, Queen Elizabeth's death met with an outpouring of official condolences, mourning, and memories of her frequent visits to Africa. But the British monarch's passing also revived a sensitive debate over Africa's colonial past. Her death came at a time when European countries are under pressure to reckon with their colonial histories, atoning for past crimes and returning stolen African artifacts held for years in museums in London and Paris. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta were among those expressing condolences. But many Africans reflected more on the tragedies of colonial times, including events that occurred in the first decade of her rule. Kenya gained independence from Britain in 1963 after an 8-year-long rebellion that left at least 10,000 people dead. Britain agreed in 2013 to compensate over 5,000 Kenyans who had suffered abuse during the Mau Mau revolt. So people are talking about this mixed legacy. And obviously a part of this is, we had stuff stolen. But is that true? Like, was stuff really stolen, or were people conquered because they weren't as strong?
I was told yesterday that there was some diamond that was stolen that was worth like $400 million.
But here's the thing, right? So if we're going to take a victory like the Zulus had over the British Empire at Isandlwana, for example, which was an unbelievable victory and one that the Zulu nation is justifiably proud of, then we must take the British victories and let them have their pride as well. And remember, the Boers were defeated, the Zulus were defeated at Rorke's Drift. There were a number of other defeats throughout this country of ours. We were at one stage a part of the British Empire, and we eventually were given our independence, and the ZAR and later on the South African Republic were formed, which were breakaways from Britain. But at a certain stage, we belonged to them. Now, why did we belong to them? Because they conquered this place. Fair and square. They beat everyone to it. I hate that people think of history as being really simple, because it isn't. And maybe it's the best thing that we're doing an episode of Blind History today again, because it'll get us back on track to understand and appreciate history. There is no such thing as a period in our history where everything was perfect, and the Garden of Eden, and all the animals just walked right up to us, and we plucked fruit from the trees, and there was plenty, and nobody fought, and everything was amazing. History is this long, complicated tapestry of bloodthirsty, violent, and angry deposition of one over the other. There was never a point in South African history where everyone just got along. You want to know? Ask the Khoi or the San people, who were basically chased from their original homes in the Drakensberg and in parts of the Highveld and the eastern escarpment of South Africa, and were basically chased, butchered, forced into running for their lives, not only by white colonials that had landed in the Cape and landed in Natal and landed in the Eastern Cape, but also by the people who'd come from further north and the people who'd come from Central Africa, and basically forced these people in a series of moves called the Mfecane and Difecane that had basically pushed these people to the edge of what was habitable South Africa. And now the only Khoi and San people who are left live in the most inhospitable parts of the country, in desert. Now, you don't hear the Khoi and San people complaining about this, because there are only about 10 of them left. But they have as much right to complain about being colonized as everyone else. And it's worth saying at this point, and I'm very reticent to bring this up, but usually the kind of people who complain about colonialism are on the left. And I feel like saying, well, have you guys thought about the fact that the only real colonialism left is ideological colonialism from the political left in South Africa and the world? It's this idea that you can be as diverse looking as you want, but if you don't support like the broad leftist idea, then you don't get to be a part of this future coalition that they're trying to cobble together. And it makes me very, very unhappy to think about people who sit and go, oh, well, colonialism was bad. But they don't want to take any of the good that came with colonialism. And there was good. Let's not bullshit each other. There was the rule of law. There was a system of ownership. There was border established. There was sovereignty established. There were lots of good things that came from colonialism. I mean, we can itemize them, but I mean, even modern technology, engineering, bridges, roads, all of that kind of thing. Are we going to throw all of that out because colonialism was just one thing bad? Because if you're saying that, then you're not really paying attention.
Did you see, and I hate to give light on this, but did you see the statement the EFF put out about it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, does anyone take it seriously?
Pathetic? No, but
it's pathetic. It is pathetic. But I mean, but these are like the only thing that the EFF really has is grievance politics. That's all. It's all about like, oh, woe is me. My life is so shit. I mean, the fact is, like the EFF get beaten in every election, right? That's why. So they're used to losing. And if you're a loser, then the only things you can hold on to in life are other things that you've lost. It's all about losing, losing, losing. So I don't really want to hear from people who just constantly lose. I'd rather hear from some winners occasionally. And I'm afraid the EFF are just a bunch of losers. So, all right, let's leave that alone for a second because it can get very heavy. A foreign couple worth 49 million rand can finally retire in South Africa despite home affairs and FNB. Does that sound like a complicated story? Well, it is. So this is from Business Insider. Apparently, a wealthy couple from Singapore should finally receive permanent residency in South Africa towards the end of this month after a 3.5-year fight to take advantage of immigration provisions designed to attract wealthy people and their money. You would think it would be easier, right? Someone has some 50 million rand that they want to bring and invest in this country. They want to live here, spend that money here. What does our government do? They take 3.5 years to make it possible for these people. Anyway, on Friday, the Western Cape High Court gave the Director General of Home Affairs and Minister 20 days to issue residence permits to Yu Tek Lin and Si He Hua, who are a married couple from Singapore. They're in their early 70s. I mean, these people haven't got a lot of time, right? No. Let them come and spend their money. They have a net worth of at least 49 million rand, which is well above the threshold of 12 million used in South Africa to determine if they are rich enough to come and settle here. So you need to have minimum 12 million rand to come to South Africa, huh?
Since when did we become Australia?
Well, I mean, I don't know that this is true because you could cross the border from Zimbabwe and you don't need to have 12 million rand. Trust me. You just have to make it past the Limpopo River and some lions and crocodiles, and you'll be fine. Anyway, apparently things went horribly wrong after they submitted their application for permanent residency back in January 2019. The couple submitted 9 statements from 3 different banks to show how much cash they had. I also think this is horrible. Like, you have to show how much money you have before you can get into a country where clearly the average person has nowhere near 12 million rand, right?
Yeah, no ways. And also, SARS is complaining that so many billionaires are leaving, or millionaires are leaving the
We should
country.
be letting anyone who wants to come in here and has some money come.
I don't understand why there's complaints going around.
I mean, if you've got more than 12 million rand, damn it, we should be throwing open the doors. We should be making it. We should be saying to people, you can come in for 4 million rand, 2 million rand. I mean, whatever you've got. If you've got some money, come to South Africa. We'll give you the permanent residence you want. Why would we hold that back from people who have money? Because those people are going to put the money into the economy. You know, they're going to have to buy products here, have to buy property here. They're going to have to live here every day. They could create
That's why
employment.
ridiculous taxes.
Right. So we should be welcoming people like this with open arms. And anybody who says otherwise is a xenophobe. That's all I'm going to say, because we're letting in people who have no money at all and who are desperate and will work their backsides to the bone. We've seen that. If you've ever seen how hard foreign nationals have to work and have to hustle to make it happen in this country, like, you'd be stupid to turn your back on that. And you'd be stupid to say, get out. Like so many people are saying Operation Dudula and Action SA and so on, because these people are adding enormous value to the economy. Anyway, that's a big story that's going on at the moment. I had no idea that you had to earn or you had to have over 12 million rand to get in to South Africa. I mean, I always thought other countries had, rules.
Yeah,
We don't.
Australia is something similar like that. Australia is ridiculous.
Yeah. This is interesting. Former James Bond star George Lazenby has had to apologize after being accused of being creepy and disgusting during an onstage interview. The actor who played 007 in the 1969 movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which was he was James Bond for one movie, and this was the one. Audience members in Perth took offense at what they described as homophobic comments and explicit anecdotes. Oh boy, what's the bet this is going to be a nothing that has been made into something by a bunch of really, really sensitive people? So apparently, Lazenby said he was saddened to hear that his stories had offended fans. It was never my intention to make hurtful or homophobic comments, and I am truly sorry about what I said. The 83-year-old actor has been removed from all future performances on the tour. So I want to know what he said, but of course, it's really difficult to find what he's supposed to have said wrong. So people will say here, for example, it was unbelievable. At one point, he named an Australian cricketer whose daughter he was chasing, and he said he dragged the daughter out of a pub and put her in a car in London, which again is horrific. It wasn't charming, it wasn't funny, it was creepy, it was offensive. Another attendee described the interview as self-interested, misogynistic stories of his sexual prowess, intimate details of diarrhea, and the objectification of women. But they don't tell you what his actual words were. So again, you dumb idiots in the media, you want us to get upset. You want to report on terrible things that this George Lazenby is supposed to have said, but you don't actually tell us what he said. So how can we know whether it's worth being offended or not? They've decided for us that we must be offended. Dummies.
Also sounds like they wanted him on.
Exactly. Look at this old guy. I mean, does he really look like you should be upset by him? Looks like 1,000 years old. Leave the guy alone. Really.
Probably doesn't even care.
I'm offended. Where? And where? Just let's keep this where thing going, please. And then finally in the news headlines, what do dogs actually dream about? Have you wondered?
I do wonder.
Okay,
but I couldn't even think of it.
Lucky you. Well, like humans, dogs make all kinds of small movements and sounds in their sleep. You may see the twitch of a tail or hear your dog whine softly. These are familiar to us and the telltale signs of dreaming. But unlike humans, you can't simply ask them what kind of dreams they had. Here are some insights from what dogs dream about. Are you ready? Well, like humans, dogs experience rapid eye movement sleep, REM sleep, which is the deepest phase of sleep, which usually involves dreaming. If REM and dreaming works the same way in dogs as it does in humans, then they're probably having dreams about their daily dog experiences. Okay, would never have guessed that. That's so insightful. Daily dog stuff? Who the hell would have guessed that? Oh, Jesus. Anyway, there is no way to know for sure what dogs dream about. See, they lie again.
What is the point of the article?
This is it. I get. So they tell you in the beginning, we're about to explain to you how all of this works. And then they tell you, oh, no, we actually don't know. I'm just going to stop reading this article right here. They don't deserve any more. Stupid idea. Really.
Oh,
whoever writes these things should be pilloried. We should put them in the stuff in the middle of town and throw fruit at them. All right. Couple of comments coming up in here. The EFF is okay with looting and corruption, but now they want a diamond back that was gifted Dear kettle, you are the pot. No one stole the Cullinan diamond. The Cullinan diamond wasn't lying around in the hands of a community of people waiting to be taken by the evil British. It was dug out of the ground by a business. The business gifted it to the crown, which last time I checked, if you dig something out of the ground and you own that land, you can do what you want with it. They decided to give it to Queen Victoria. So good luck trying to get that back. It's not going to happen. It wasn't yours in the first place. Even if you lived right on top of it in Cullinan, you didn't dig it out. You know, if Leonardo da Vinci had sat there with ideas about how the Mona Lisa was going to come out, but never painted it, no one would have had a Mona Lisa. So someone had to do this. Someone had to make it happen. Another way people are like, oh no, that's ours, give it back. It's like the whole stolen land thing. Like, show me your title deed. Show me that. Then we'll talk about it. Otherwise, you're just talking shit. You know, because before you were there, before your ancestors were there was someone else's ancestors there. And before them, there was someone else. And before them, someone else. How far would you like to go back in this dumb game of yours? Hugo says, Bitcoin seems to be recovering. I think it's a fake out. I'll wait another week. Next turnaround Tuesday will tell. Well, we'll find out. We'll also chat to Revix next week as well. And hopefully they'll be able to give us some insights into why it's ticking up. But I do see Bitcoin's at $22,253 this morning.
That's a big jump since last week.
Yeah, there's a move, which is excellent. Congo Chris says it's the soft bigotry of low expectations. If something is against you, you have an excuse not to try to be better. Exactly. Tracy says, how many African countries became independent since the Queen became head of the Commonwealth? She was not the colonizer some make her out to be. Well, almost all of the former possessions of Britain became independent during this Queen's reign. So if she's the evil one, then explain how she's the one who, gave up on the idea of empire. But this idea that colonialism is bad is just, and people just accept it. People just go, okay, well, everything about colonialism is bad.
No, but the thing is, this is what they're teaching in high school.
I know.
They don't actually teach facts. Like if you go and check out, high school textbooks, it's a system. They're trying to turn people onto the bad parts of history.
Of course. And it's also become grievance. It's like, what can we moan about the most? Ancient Ether says, Snai, Britain was also going broke when they recognized the independence of most of these countries in Africa. More of a cost-saving strategy, if you ask me, kind of like selling hotels a monopoly. This is not wrong. But again, compared to what? Like, when people say things are bad here or they're good here or whatever, I'm always like, well, compared to what? What are you going to compare it to? Are you comparing it to what actually happened in history and all of these terrible things that went on in the world, and how the British Empire was probably, out of all the empires, the least violent, brutal, and demonstrative? Out of all the empires that have existed in human history, the British Empire was the softest of them all. There are things that every empire did that are unbelievable, that are genocidal, that are disgusting, that are terrible. There are also things that happened in non-empires that were all of those things. But the British Empire, you can say what you like about. They built railways, established shipping routes, opened trade, brought the rule of law to those far-flung parts of the world. And language. I mean, here we are doing a show this morning in English that people all over Africa can understand in English too. We've got listeners in Kenya, we've got listeners in Tanzania, we've got listeners in Uganda, we've got listeners in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi. These are all former British colonies. The reason that they can listen to us this morning is because they speak English. That's an effect of colonialism. So you take out the good, you take out the bad. If you take out just the bad, thinking you can leave the good, you're missing something. I mean, there's a lot of complicated nuance here. It's not so straightforward. Dogs dream about ass sniffing and licking balls, says Steve. Well, see, Steve, you should have written that article, because how frustrating to get to a point where, like, 3 lines into the article, they're like, we can't really tell you what dogs dream about. But that was what we told us on at the beginning. Madness. Please, can we change the topic? I'm not sure which topic you want us to change, Lee. Be specific.
I think she's talking about the whole colonialism chat.
Well,
Probably.
Lee, you're the only one who wants to change it because everybody else is only talking about that. Now he says, but that's assuming the countries they colonized did not have the rule of law relevant to its people. Well, most of them didn't, Snay. There was no rule of law unless in places like KwaZulu-Natal, for example, you're talking about just the king or the tribal chief's whims. That was the rule of law. In most of like sub-Saharan Africa, we kind of made it up as we went before that system was applied to us. And the same is true for the Boers. English law was kind of imposed on them. Anyway, I mean, Tabo says what I'm hearing here is that South Africa should thank the British Empire for colonialism. No, then you're hearing that wrong too, Tabo. I didn't say that. I said there are good and bad things here. It's a lot more complicated. For you to say it's good or to say it's bad is childish and stupid and shows that you're not reading the texts and paying attention. So I'm not going to be bullied and cudgeled into saying something that sounds outrageous and sounds one-sided when that is exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. If you want to make things complicated by going into the detail of it, and you want to figure out how much was good and how much was bad, do it. But don't come up with this bullshit that it's all bad or it's all good, just because you want to be able to conveniently package something and put it into some corner of your mind and then forget about it. I'm not going to be strong-armed into that nonsense. And don't put words in my mouth. I'll fill 2 fucking hours tomorrow with more words if you put them in my mouth. And I'll do 2 hours the day after as well. And you can stop listening for all I care, but I'm not going to stop saying what I think. All right, it is time for us to check in with Yaku. I'm so glad that he's on this morning, because when I saw Yaku at the office the other day, I said to him, there are 3 things we really need to talk about. So Yaku Voigt is one of our fantastic clients. He's got his own show, Unbundled, which is on today. And I'm hoping that he's going to be regaling us with all kinds of useful information this morning, but always on your show. Yaku, I hear interesting guests who have really interesting things to tell us about all kinds of IT information, security information, but I'm greedy about your time. And this morning, I want us to talk about 3 things in particular. Do you remember what the 3 things are?
Good morning, Gareth. Happy birthday, Ryan.
Yaku, thanks, man.
So, Gareth, I remember at least one of them. I've just, you'll see my eyes are a bit puffy. I've just come out of Cape Town for the World Cup 7.
You win.
It's been a busy weekend. I was fortunate enough for Lenovo and Mustang to host us, so it was a long weekend.
Nice. Awesome. It must have been so much fun. Well, I'm glad you could join
us.
And
then I went and brought the cold weather from Cape Town, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely did.
Too bad, but we're dealing with a bit of load shedding, Ryan and I, but we're all right. So, Yaku, let's just talk about this quickly. Email security has come up so many times on the show. In fact, we were talking about it just the other day, and I even said at the time, we've got to get Yaku on from Catalytic to help us understand how bad this problem is. Have you also noticed there's a huge uptick in like spam mail?
It was actually interesting that just after you and I spoke the other day, there's a new team member that started with us. And literally, I think that same day we had the conversation, she sends me a message. She says, listen, you've just sent me a mail to say, please, can I send you my mobile number or something like that? And I go, okay, let's go and have a look and see what the from address is. So obviously the name says it's me. And then it came from some weird email address. So, yeah, I think it's right. I think it's all over the place.
I mean, it's not just me that's getting these emails every day. Ryan, have you also been receiving a ton of like spam emails from like someone who says you've got a package waiting at the post office? Then there's one that's like SARS wants to refund you this money.
I've won about one that says iPhones.
Oh yeah, you win phones. And then there's someone obviously who says that they've just stumbled upon an inheritance which you are due, which you didn't know about, like for millions and millions of rands.
I think it's still the most pervasive way of basically scamming people or let's call it hacking them or getting into their networks. It's still the easiest way to do, because the biggest gap in security is that there's people somewhere in the mix, and that obviously creates the opportunity for people that maybe don't pay attention when they open a mail, or in most cases now you just have to get people to click on a link. If you get them to click on a link, then you can, then the hacker's got some work he can do.
So Yaku, how do you know when an email's fake straight away? Because some of these things look like they might be legit. I often just go and look at the email address itself, and if it's if it's some long, complicated email address, or it looks like a Yahoo or a Gmail or whatever, then it's just mostly likely to be nonsense. But is there a better way of figuring out what's right and what isn't?
Well, Gareth, I think email for me is almost a little bit the way in which you handle the calls that come to your phone. So everybody will say to you, well, if I don't know the number that's phoning me, or if it says a private number, we tend not to answer it. But when an email comes in, I think because email, there's just so much of it. If they can make it look real enough, then people tend to be a little bit more careless when it comes to that. But like me, if I talk about myself, if it's an attachment, even if the attachment says it's coming from FNB or whatever, I'll open an attachment when I really, really know I'm expecting it, or I need to do that. And then, like I said, typically when there's a link in like a URL that said, please click on this link in order to go do X, Y, and Z. That to me normally is quite dangerous. But you rightly pointed out. I mean, it starts with who did the email come from, and that doesn't mean just the display name. Go and have a look and see what the email address is.
Yeah. All right. So that's email stuff. There's other stuff too that I wanted to talk to you about, and we were actually last week we were talking about some general stuff around the internet and kind of how people behave, and how, for example, I have no issues buying things online anymore. It's not even a thing for me. I'm sure you're the same, Ryan. When you want to buy something, you probably go online first, and then you think about all the other stuff afterwards, right? Going to the shops, why would you want to do that? If it's stuff you don't need to go to the shops for, why bother?
Yeah, you have to deal with people.
I'm the worst. If anything online, my wife has to do, Gareth. I go to the shops.
You prefer to go to the shops? I thought because you're this very tech savvy guy. You're like, very forward thinking. You do all this modern stuff, but you actually like going to the shops.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's actually quite interesting because my wife comes from a completely different industry, but there's nothing she cannot find online. Me, I'm super lazy. I just go where I know I'm gonna find it. Like we had this discussion. Like, how can you buy shoes online? You have to fit it and see what size it is.
No. Shoes are the easiest thing because you know what your size is. You just order the shoes, they arrive. It's perfect. Nothing worse than going to a shop, Yaku, and they don't have the shoes that you're looking for in your size. That's frustrating as hell. I'd rather just go onto a website, especially with sneakers and things. Just go onto a website. If they don't have your size, you don't buy them.
I'm clearly old school.
Yeah, I feel like it's a sunken cost thing. The moment you go to a shop and you can't find your size or anything, you feel like, I wasted all this time and petrol and money and energy and effort. Whereas if you go online, it's like, they didn't have my size. Not the end of the world.
Yaku, are you all about that instant gratification? You just like to have it now. You don't want to wait.
No, I'm probably the worst shopper. That's probably half the reason is I like to delay. So, but I don't know. For me, if I find something that fits, I'll buy 3 of it, and then I don't have to go shopping for the next year or something like that. So I'm just a lazy shopper. And like the online stuff from a procurement perspective, I'm super bad at it.
Are these sites secure? When we make payments with our credit cards and things like that, are you confident about those kinds of, the certification that they attach to so many of these sites, the fact that they have these payment gateways, which are becoming more and more, the usual. This is what a lot of sites have, these payment infrastructures built into the back end of them. Are we confident that these things are safe with things like our credit card details?
So that I think that's actually quite a long and interesting conversation. So I had a guest on the show, Craig from Endemic, And they were talking about specifically around how these websites connect to the different payment gateways, or it might redirect you to something else. And those websites in the back end, when they develop, they speak to each other with a protocol called APIs. And now you've got a developer who's actually a developer who doesn't really worry that much about security, and just about making the functionality work. So the biggest thing probably in cybersecurity in the upcoming future is how those different back-end infrastructure speaks to each other in a secure way. So I think there's massive work to be done there. In general, I think the big name retailers, I think they spend a lot of time, and there's obviously lots of reputational risk. So,
Sure.
But in saying that, I think wherever you submit your credit card details, you've got to be cognizant of it. You've got to, I'd say be as careful as you can.
So I've got this from Snae, which is an interesting one. I got an email, she says, from a person who wanted to add me on LinkedIn. He wanted to share new EU AML TFC guidelines. I think they target people according to their professions now. I'm in financial compliance.
Sure.
These guys are good, though. I mean, you do get emails from people, and they really know what they're talking about. They sound like it's legit. I mean, I get these ones about like business. These people who are, can we help you to get your website to reach more people? And, can we help you connect to a bigger audience of people? Which is really our business. So if we needed help on that front, I think we'd be failing at our own business. But I get these every
Gareth,
day.
I think this is a perfect example of it's called people engineering, basically. Where that Chinese cartel that hacked Bank of Bangladesh, that's exactly how they started. They start by adding people on LinkedIn. Then the one guy applied for a job at the bank, and he had like a whole legit profile and all that type of stuff. And that was just so that they could find out what somebody's email credentials were. And then from there, they sent him an email with a link that opened, that created a ransomware setup inside the bank. And it took them months. They were just going at it. And they almost, I think in that Bank of Bangladesh, they almost got away by stealing $3 million or $3 billion. It was a massive thing. And this example that's how you, work your way into organization. You connect with people. LinkedIn to me is the same as what we spoke about, email and phone numbers. If you don't know somebody, go and make sure, because that's the mechanism which I almost want to say they soften you up, and then start working their way into the organization. They're not in a hurry. It's not happening. You're getting a LinkedIn request and then they're going to try and hack you today.
No.
I think the last stat I heard was
it's a long game.
Yeah. It can. They'll work at it for 18 months before they try and do something. So you've got to be careful. And we know who people are. We know who the people are that we're connecting to. So something like that to me would be dangerous. Right. I wouldn't be keen on that.
Well, thank you, Yaku. I'm afraid we're out of time on this one. You've also got a show of your own just now to do, so we'll be listening to that later on this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much. Ryan, bring cake.
Yeah. You know what? There's still much more we have to discuss, Yaku. We didn't even get to the rest of the stuff, but we'll wait a couple of days and then we'll get you back on. Thanks, man.
Okay, 100%. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Sanele says this Queen and royalty talk is really getting old now. Can't it just die like the Queen? So we will move on. We've got lots of other good stuff. It's Ryan's birthday. It is Tuesday, the 13th of September. Ryan, thank you for stepping in, because Lebang says now she's so frustrated. She just sent me a message. Not even her hotspot is connecting at the moment. That's how bad the load shedding is where she is. So Ryan is stepping in quite well here this morning for Lebang on his birthday. And we'd like to hear from you. You can drop us a comment in the comment section, like and subscribe, all of that stuff. We want to hear from you. And you can also send us a WhatsApp if you want to the WhatsApp line 071-783-6214. CliffCentral.com, Tuesday morning.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
I'd be very surprised. Like, where's that button? I've missed it my whole life.
Yeah.
I don't need it now.
But it kind of led us down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out, like, what else do we just not know about cars? You know, I think there's this, and, you know, first and foremost, most cars are kind of the same, but there's going to be some differences in terms of features and stuff. But what do we not know that's universally kind of across the entire board?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the first one is, did you know that if you are allergic to pollen or pollutants, the best place you can be is in a car?
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, we are live on this Tuesday morning. It's Ryan's birthday, among other things. Bitcoin's on the way up. We're having all the joys of spring bursting into bloom around us. It's a good time to be alive. It really is. So we were talking just a moment ago with Yaku about like buying stuff online, and there's some interesting comments that have come through. Vincent says, I got to a point where I don't buy anything online if I didn't Google or have contact with the company I'm buying from. I don't even answer calls from unknown phone numbers. I think you've got to be super careful, but these days it's so easy to do stuff online. You don't even think about it very much, right?
Yeah, I've had my credit card details leaked by Amazon a couple times, more than
Really?
once actually. Yeah.
And
Amazon,
did anyone buy stuff on your credit card, or did you just find out that they did a leak?
No, I just managed to stop it. What they do is they took the credit card and they put through like 40 or 50 rand.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it goes through, then they do it again. And then if that goes through, so you just get the SMS notifications. So then I called the bank and I said, look, I'm not buying from ebooks.com.
Right.
And then 50 minutes later, I get a call from the bank saying, they just tried to transfer 15,000 out of the accounts, but we've put it on lock because you gave us a call earlier. Is this you? And then it's like, no. So they put in like 2 transactions, and then they hit you with the big ones. So
that's
at least
so clever, because you wouldn't even notice if you weren't paying attention, and it was just a small amount. And then they kind of test the waters, and then if they can see there's no reaction, then they take more and more money.
Yeah, because even my dad calls me sometimes. Every time like a transaction comes off, even if it's on his card, he'll say, "Have you used my card on something?" And I'll say, "No."
The problem is
right away.
Now, Ryan, you've got everybody paranoid. Now everybody's going to be checking their bank statements. They're like having a look for every 10 rand that comes off here. Where does that go? And suddenly I'm starting to worry. Like maybe that's been happening to me. I'm sure everybody is.
But the other thing is South African banking systems are completely like so far ahead compared to American systems.
Yeah.
We have 2-factor and we've got the one-time pins and things. In America, if you put your credit card through, it just goes right through. Like there's no checks, nothing, which is scary. Doesn't matter what amount.
David says, I have a standard rule. I do not do business with anyone who solicits my business. If I want to deal with you, I'll make contact first. Your first contact just disqualified you. Yeah, but I mean, like what? So advertising doesn't affect you at all. You don't pay any attention to advertising. So if someone says, we this new website and we do this and that and the other, you're not going to use them just because they made contact with you first. Name of the game is a virtual card. I repeat, virtual cards, says Elon on his card. Okay, well, this is an interesting thing that I don't know a lot about, but Ges also brought it up earlier. It says, rather use a virtual card online, unlock, buy, then lock the card. That CVV number will change every hour. It minimizes the risk a lot. So how do you get one of these virtual cards?
It's on the banking apps. You can create virtual cards.
Oh, then why do we still even have like credit cards then?
Well, I mean, you've got like your Apple Pay loaded up on your phone and stuff, but like on the actual banking apps, you can create a virtual card that changes all the details, as you mentioned, every however long. You can turn it off and on.
Okay. See, I'm learning things here. These are things I had no idea about. So we've got very smart people listening to us, able to help us figure out how to use these things. I use Apple Pay now for almost everything. It's just so much easier. Yeah, it's terrific. And you don't even have to carry your wallet around with you. If you've got your phone and you've got everything on there. I know a lot of people go, oh my God, but that's the worst, because if you lose your phone, you lose everything, which is obviously true. but it's just so much easier to just use your phone. I mean, when I do grocery shopping now, I just take that. So yes,
Also,
I am.
you have to wait for those people to take the cards out of their wallet, and you're like, dude, how long does this take?
Right.
Where now just hit the double button, you can just pay.
Oh.
It's great.
Yeah, use your phone. Many banks are pushing people to use virtual cards. Some banks are even giving away prizes if you use your virtual card during September. Ooh, well, don't forget, as we head towards the end of the year, people are going to go shopping, and then we have all of those. We have those specials. We have Black Tuesday, Black Friday. All of those different days that we have where people go and spend.
When do you think Christmas is going to set up in shops? I'm really sure it must be coming soon.
Certainly, they usually start their stuff by October, but let's not wish it to happen any sooner. No. You really need to be careful. You can't even say, hang on. That's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. Your virtual card is just a digital version of your credit card, is it not? It contains all your physical cards in one, like Samsung Pay. You see, I don't know. So, I mean, I'm taking Ryan.
So that's a different thing. Like Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, that's a copy of your card. Whereas the virtual cards, they generate different numbers, which you can turn on and off, and it changes details and things like that. I think it's meant for specifically online shopping.
Excellent. All right, very good. There are also some other things in the news that we can get to just now. Don't forget, we've got a brand new episode of Blind History coming up in a short while. That's going to be loads of fun. Here are two of these voice notes that we hadn't got to yet. I've got a couple of these. Let's take a listen to this one.
Hi, Gareth. Just want to thank you for your tribute to the Queen. I learned a lot about the history of the royal family from what you said, which I had no idea about.
All right.
And I do follow them profoundly. At the moment, I feel privileged to watch what is happening, because this is now history happening. Yes. Anyway, great show, Gareth. Thank you. Bye.
I love the way in some of these voice notes, people they start trailing off. They're like, and that's all I really got to say. Well, that's enough for now. All right. Thank you very much for that one. And then this.
Morning, guys. What's up, bitches?
Nice.
Like and subscribe. Gareth, do you remember? Sit on my face and tell me that you love me. Please do it for us.
Yes, that's famous from Monty Python. Sit on my face. Very good song. Very, very nice. We used to play that on on radio. Used to get us into trouble all the time. People are like, how can you talk about something like this? All right. Last week of September, Mariah Carey arises from a yearly slumber to feed on the souls of retail workers in malls all around the world, says Congo Chris. That's exactly right. It's coming. It's coming, whether you like it or not. All of that Christmas music just around the corner. I know nobody wants to think about it now, but I promise you it's sooner than you think. Crazy.
And how much money does she make off it? I mean, can you imagine the royalties? Like she must literally sit there and be like, oh yes, it's October. They're gonna start coming in.
Mariah just loves Christmas. There's nothing in the world that makes her happier than when she can start playing that song over and over again on repeat. So listen, obviously your birthday today and everything. Are you planning any? You said you had a surprise party over the weekend, which you didn't enjoy. Are you planning any other kinds of celebrations, or are you just keeping it quiet? And since we brought this up the other day, I've had plenty of people telling me that they're also under pressure from their friends and family to decide what they're going to do for December, which is, it feels like it's miles away to December. We just spoke about like Christmas and everything, but people are already planning this stuff. I mean, my brother said to us the other day, if we want to do anything like family over the holidays, we need to plan it now. We need to have our shit together now. And I'm like, what? It's only September.
Yeah, no, I'm nowhere near planning December. I haven't even planned my birthday properly. Like my dad's been away for a little while, and he called me yesterday and he's like, so what are you gonna do like for your birthday like tomorrow? And I said, well, I don't know. What do people do? Like, I'm just gonna go to work and come back and maybe have a nice dinner. And I was like, what do people do on their birthdays in the middle of the week?
As little as possible usually, and then they'll tie it to the closest weekend, because I don't know, Ryan, like I don't enjoy even when I was 25, I didn't like doing stuff in the middle of the week, because you always feel like, oh, you got so much shit to do the next day and then you're going to feel horrible. I mean, you can do it, And you can do it better at 20 than you can at 30 or 40. But it's much better to just tie it to the closest weekend. And that's also why I've never understood why if there's a public holiday on a Wednesday, they just move it to the Friday, automatically.
Exactly.
Then people
I'm
can have
gonna go check out. I'm gonna go get a consult for another tattoo. So I think that might be cool.
Oh, is that going to be your present to yourself?
I think so. I haven't got one in a while. So
what? When you choose tattoos, what's the process?
So it's like, what tattoo am I thinking of getting? Because I'll have like a couple ideas lined up on my phone, and then just sort of placement of where I should put them. And so for me, it takes so long. Like, I've got friends who literally can walk into a tattoo shop tomorrow, and I've got friends who are tattoo artists as well, and they just get right on and they just go get tattoos. I have to think about it. Like, is this going to be cool? Is it going to be cool in like 10, 15 years? So I really think
you don't know that. I mean, some tattoos already, like all those tribal ones people used to get that look so dated now, or the ones where people have like, Chinese writing, but then they find out that it doesn't actually say anything like what they thought it said. Those are always hilarious.
Or bad spelling.
Oh my God. Right. But it's a weird thing. Like, there's some people who are definitely addicted to tattoos. I mean, one of my friends he cannot get enough. Like, anytime he's got extra money, anytime he's got a little patch of skin that hasn't been tattooed already, he's off to the, tattoo parlor to go and get something done.
It's addictive. Like, I've got my favorite tattoos on my forearm. I got this one.
What is that?
It's the Eminem Kamikaze album cover over here. It's
okay. By the way, you're very upset because Bieber's not coming anymore. We didn't really talk about this. What's the story there? Have they explained why he's not coming?
We spoke about. Do you remember it was the whole mental health thing? But now, I read Big Concerts put out a thing saying it might affect us, and I was like, but he just said he's canceled the whole world tour. How is it might affect us? Like, how will it? So I don't know. They said they're gonna wait and hear, and then we're gonna see if we can get refunds for the tickets. So that's why I was like, cool. Well, then a tattoo's in order because I'm getting like $3,000 back. Because I bought 2, so I have they were like $1,500 each.
Shouldn't you wait for the money to be deposited back in your account before you go and get tattoos? I mean, just what comes first here, the chicken or the egg?
Oh man, don't bring that sound.
Doesn't sound like the most well thought through plan, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. I mean, it's all up to you. Sanela says, right on, G, Apple Pay is the best. It is safer than tapping in your card because if you lose that, they can tap those 99 Rand transactions until the cars come home. Yeah, that's a good point. And at least with Apple Pay, it uses like Face ID or fingerprint ID or codes or whatever. So you can't just, tap it. I mean, if someone has your card, I suppose they could use it, and they could use it for those small amounts, and you would only realize much later on. But in this case, you actually have to have there's some kind of second check. There's some kind of like stage of making sure it's securing.
My dad works for the bank. You should hear like all the kind of fraud stories he has to deal with. It's actually unbelievable. Wow. Like, there are so many different types of fraud that the departments have had to deal with. Like, for example, the tapping thing. Like, people would get those machines and go to your back pocket, and then the tap would pick up from inside your wallet. That's why you had to get those wallet cases that are protected by RSS or whatever it's called. And
I think I had one of those ones.
Yeah.
So I've got one of these wallet thingies that apparently you're supposed to like have put your card in, because then it protects it from being like automatically swiped by someone. But I just, it feels like a big, fat, heavy wallet that I don't want to carry around, So I'm like, no, thanks. I think I'll manage without it. Don't even stress.
And then the other one that my dad told me about, and this is probably like, I don't know, he told me about it six months to a year ago. It was a trend back then, was these criminals would steal the actual terminals from whatever business. And then what they do is they put a refund in the terminal and then put their card information in and get a refund from the company into their account, which is crazy.
Wow. Listen, criminals they are so clever.
I don't know how they figure it out.
Always finding new ways of doing this stuff.
It's a professional.
Vincent says, on the subject that we were talking about just a moment ago, I don't plan shit, never done it. Life should just happen. Plans don't always work out the way it was planned. I haven't been disappointed for not planning anything. Yeah, but Vincent, it sounds to me like you just live your life just bouncing from one thing to the next. I mean, like, how do you even know what's happening on a daily basis? If I don't have a diary, if I don't have a list of appointments and things I have to do, like today, I know exactly what my diary looks like, right? And if I didn't have that, I'd be lost. I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah,
I've got to have a plan.
I also like to have plans. I just don't know what people do on the fly.
Well, especially when it comes to planning a holiday or something. I mean, if you just get in your car and you just drive somewhere, now you're going to find accommodation, or how does that work, Vincent? How does that even happen? Like, how do you get your life together? What if you have to book a place? What if you have to pay a deposit for something? What if you have to, buy some things, invite other people? Sure, it sounds great, like living in your world where everything's just very much on the spur of the moment. How do you get anything done? You understand? It's crazy. I don't know.
I'm always jealous of people like that, like who can just do stuff, like no worries, no plans. They're just like, let's just go and do this. Like, and I'm like, I wish I could just be like that sometimes.
Sanella says, tattoos are a beautiful catastrophe. My first one was on my rib, the most painful area, and it was downhill from there. The only reason I haven't had a fourth is because it's massive, as in 3 15,000 Rand sessions. That's pretty cool. Listen, if you have good tattoos and they are unique and they are well executed, I think it can be a major, major plus. It can make someone more interesting. But if you have shit tattoos and if you look like shit, it doesn't matter what the tattoos are. Like, that's the way but I mean, again, I'm speaking as someone who doesn't have any.
No, but I've heard it all. Like, when I tell people I'm going to get more tattoos, it's like, why would you do that to yourself? And I'm like, I think it's pretty cool. Like, I like it.
It's cool. These days, it's more the rule than the exception.
My gran always used to say it's for thieves and sailors or something like that. She never used to like my tattoo. Yeah, sailors and prisoners.
Where is the most painful place? Because Sanella just said he had it on his rib, which was the most painful. But then somebody else says here that the shin, Elon as God says, the shin is probably the most painful place to have a tattoo.
Well, I have a friend of mine who got a tattoo at the back of his head. He literally he shaped his head and got it like right here. And he said that was the most painful thing he's ever had. And I also have friends who got theirs on the shin. And the shin, I don't think it's nearly as bad as your head. So for me, I don't actually know. I think it might have been the forearm, only because it was a 7-hour tattoo. So it's like somebody just rubbing into your skin for 7 hours. And after a while, it gets a bit painful. But it's not too bad.
Dogoza says, getting my first tattoo on the 3rd of October, and it's a huge half sleeve. So how long will that take? How long does that take to do, Ryan?
It depends on the artist, and it depends on the kind of tattoo you're getting. But I would say a half sleeve, that could take maybe 2 to 3 sessions. It's easy.
Really?
It's probably 6-7 hours session. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Depends on the shading and line work and all that kind of stuff.
And what do? You just lie there? Do you fall asleep? I mean, what can you do for that long? Because that's a long time. That Dokoza says here it's 6 hours for him to get that one.
Oh, it's 6 hours.
No.
Awesome. So that's probably the first session. The problem is you keep coming back. No, so it also depends on the position. Like, luckily I could sit like this when I got this one done. So there's a comfortable position, and so it's not too bad. But some of them are awkward. Like, I'd imagine if you're lying on your rib cage for like 6 hours, it can be a bit uncomfortable. But I don't know. I haven't got one for a while. It's not as bad as what people think. Like, when I first got it, I didn't think, I thought it was gonna be a lot worse the way people made it sound. But actually, your adrenaline kicks in, and so you actually don't feel it. It's the healing process, like for the next 2 weeks, where you just got to look after it.
Why do they make you put like cling wrap over a new tattoo?
So it doesn't get infected. Because if it gets infected, then sometimes the ink can even. I have a friend of mine who got his tattoo on his foot, and he didn't wrap it or look after it, and the ink actually left. There was just like the black lines left, like the color was pushed out of his skin. It was so weird.
What the hell?
No, you have to know, like, tattoo places are the most clean sort of places anywhere. Like, when everyone said, like, don't go to tattoo shops during COVID, I was like, that's ridiculous, because it's like going to the dentist. It's one of the cleanest places. It has to be. Otherwise, your skin gets infected and all of that. So,
imagine a gross infected tattoo that's all like full of pus and gross shit.
And it happens. It happens.
Ugh, that would put me off completely, as if I'm like considering it in the first place. Ancient Ether says, when I meet somebody interesting, it's definitely not because they're talking about someone else's artwork on their body. All right.
Yeah.
I need to be horrible. One day you're old and you need a good iron. That's what your tattoo will look like.
No. I've seen older guys with tattoos. They still look pretty cool. Like, I've never seen. Look, there's some bad ones, but that's why I say, like, go check out your artists and make sure it's what you want.
Have you seen the way that people who had tattoos and then want to get rid of them have to go through that process? Because that's interesting.
I find it interesting to watch. Like, I get addicted to watching those videos, but I've
seen them online.
Looks
as well.
so painful.
It does look painful, but I mean, it's nice that you can reverse it.
Yes, exactly.
It's not exactly easy, and if you've got a huge big tattoo all over your arm, it's going to take a long time for them to get rid of all of that, and you probably won't get rid of it 100%, because the way that they get rid of it is to actually
just layers of skin.
Yeah, they laser off the skin, right?
Yeah.
Actually, they take away that epidermis, which must be sore and must also put you through like a hell of a process. I don't know. Again, I'm just saying from what I've seen online. It's nice that they can reverse it, because I always used to think a tattoo was forever, and there was no way, that you could get rid of that.
But also, I've heard it's twice the pain of actually getting a tattoo.
Oof. Yeah, I know someone who went and did it, and he did not advise that it was fun. It's like it doesn't sound like the most exciting way to spend your day.
No, not at all.
All right. Few other things here. One day when you are hang on. Someone says here, old tattoos look better in my opinion. That's Rick.
I like that.
It's interesting. A lot of people use tattoos as a way of kind of getting rid of scars and hiding scars, which is cool. I saw a really interesting YouTube video the other day about this girl who had some kind of scar in her, I think in her calf, on her leg, and she used a tattoo to kind of hide it. And it's amazing how you cannot see a damn thing once this tattoo artist has done their magic on her leg. You can see that there's no identifiable scar afterwards, because it's been colored in so beautifully. It's been shaded in the right way, and it really looked amazing afterwards. So that's impressive stuff. Color says laser removal breaks the ink down, which is then carried away in your bloodstream. Oh, okay. Is that how it works?
I get addicted to watching them do it online.
A very old school opinion here from Marty, who says tattoos are for people who never had coloring in books when they were kids. Nice.
Oh,
very good. All right, so that's going to be Ryan's present to himself is a tattoo.
Yeah.
Get more of that done.
I'll report back when it gets done.
Only once you get your Bieber money back, not before that. No,
I'm just going for a consult, so we'll see.
All right, very good. All right, what else is on your mind this morning? What else do you want to tell us about? You can send us a message on the WhatsApp line. You can also send it to 071-783-6214. We'd like to hear some voice notes from you. Try to keep them under 30 seconds so we can play them and they short and sharp and to the point. And then we can get back to you and talk also about the stuff that you want to talk about this morning and every other morning. Lebang, unfortunately, couldn't join us today. She's dealing with some severe load shedding in her area. It seems to be going on all over the place and will be for the rest of today. And tomorrow they say they're going to downgrade it to stage 2. So that's at least good news. And Eskom has said they're terribly, terribly sorry. No, who am I kidding? They don't care. They haven't apologized. They're not going to.
I just want to know, why isn't the guy who's turning off the power ever on strike? Why doesn't he stop working? Everyone else works, and everyone else is striking at Eskom, but then the guy who turns all the power off seems to always be on. Dude, take a day off.
Yeah, very good. I'm still reeling, and a lot of people in the comments yesterday were too, from the fact that MASH actually got banned from OnlyFans. Did you hear that story?
I did. I spoke to him in the office.
MASH is going to
about
be
it.
the only person I know who's actually been banned from OnlyFans. Like the things you have to do to get banned from that. I mean, I thought that anything goes on OnlyFans, but
That's
clearly,
what I thought as well. But I
Yeah.
do know that the platform wasn't only built for that. Like it evolved into sort of adult content, but it wasn't built for that. So maybe they do still have like guidelines. But I was shocked at that. I was like, damn, MASH.
Yeah, he must have put some really hardcore, scary shit up there for them to have said, "I'm sorry, we're not going to let you."
Just
onto
in
the
a
platform."
profile picture?
I mean, exactly. It's crazy, right?
No.
All right. Well, we've got a brand new episode of Blind History for you today, and we're going to be talking about Captain James Cook, who, of course, is one of the great adventurers and expeditioners of the 1700s. You know, mapped out parts of the world that had never really been mapped before, explored interesting places, learned about interesting animals and plants and people, and really just took that era of exploration to the absolute limits. And the way he died is just unreal too. So you don't want to miss that episode. It's coming up in just a short while from now. Chris T says, MASH talks shit. Who gets banned from OnlyFans? Yeah. I also thought it was bullshit, but it seems like it's true.
Yeah, it sounds legit.
It seems like it was real. Okay. Anything else you want to throw in here, Ryan, or should we go into blind history? Let's do it.
Yeah, we can go into blind history if you like.
Good. All right, here it is. It is time for our first episode of the new season of Blind History. Very excited to bring this to you. It's just me and Anthony Mederer, and that's all you need for this episode. We're going to look at the life and times of Captain James Cook. Fascinating guy. Take a look at this, and we will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. bright and early. The creaking ship rose and fell in massive swells, with waves as high as 10 men stacked on top of each other. Blistering Antarctic winds seemed determined to prevent anyone from rounding the cursed Cape Horn. It had been months since any of the crew had seen their families, eaten fresh food, or tasted anything but seawater every time they opened their mouths. And yet they remained determined to explore places that had never been mapped, encountering people and animals that no European had ever seen. At the helm, undaunted by rain, wind, sun, and sea, was Captain Cook. More legend than man. So 2 famous fictional characters come from the person that we're about to discuss with you. In this episode of Blind History, we look at James Cook, and the 2 fictional characters I'm talking about are Captain James Hook from Peter Pan and Captain James Kirk from the Starship Enterprise, Star Trek, both of whom are kind of composite characters of the original Captain James Cook, famously the man who navigated, made maps, captained a military vessel and later on exploratory and adventurous vessels, discovered, in inverted commas, New Zealand and Australia, traveled the whole of the Pacific Ocean, Hawaii, mapped parts of Newfoundland and Canada, explored the St. Lawrence River and estuary, really made an incredible mark on discovery and on seafaring.
And peacefully changed the map of the world more than any other person.
Phenomenal. They were using his maps up to 200 years after his death, apparently. So Captain James Cook is the subject of our discussion. And this episode, of course, as with all of the episodes, it's a great pleasure to sit here and talk with another history geek, Anthony Mederer. We've got so much to talk about with this guy. What an interesting dude. I mean, really, started off, nobody really would have thought much of him. His father was a farmer, I think. And he saw some action in the Royal Navy as a young man, as a teenager. Remember, they used to join at like 11 years old. You'd go into the Navy and you'd be, a servant basically to one of the officers, and that's how you'd learn.
Yeah. It's difficult, I suppose, when we're sitting here today, but probably in likened to traveling to Mars would be, in those days, there's so many unconquered. I mean, the mentality of trying to discover and...
Well, I don't even think comparing it to Mars is fair, because we've even seen what Mars looks like.
True.
Before we get there. Whereas this was not possible. They didn't know how big the world was. They didn't know how far we were from the sun. It was largely thanks to James Cook and the expedition to Tahiti that they managed to figure out what one astronomical unit, in other words, the distance from the sun to the earth, actually was, by measuring Venus as it crossed between the sun and earth.
Yeah.
This is how they figured out how far we were from the sun.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
And with a scientific mind. So, often you would get the explorers, but to have what he had, so he could describe things scientifically, he gave more from his voyages than any other person in history in terms of flora, fauna, scientific stars, galactic, all those things.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he surveying each of area, surveying New Zealand, like you said, rightly so. It wasn't long ago that they improved on it, but just recently. I mean, he was so accurate in what he did.
He also, up to that point, traveled further south than any other recorded person.
Yeah, looking for the continent Australis.
Yeah, they were the famous southern continent, because they looked at the map of the earth and they said, well, how come all these continents are based on the top? There must be a big one at the bottom to counterbalance. There is. It's called Antarctica, but it's buried under ice.
Yeah.
And it would have been impossible in those ships. He was clever enough to know, you go too far south, you can get trapped in the ice, and then you're going to die because there's no supplies. Or you're going to end up freezing to death just because it's so bloody cold down there. There's no way through. So this guy really is something else. He started off, obviously, being a naval military man, and learnt the ropes very quickly. He was very quickly promoted. As I mentioned earlier, was given a job early on to map Newfoundland, which took him, I think, 5 years. But he left such detailed maps that even now people are blown away.
But Gareth, just before I got to the Navy side, there's a very, very important point on his seamanship. There was a very important point early on. So as you'd mentioned before, son of a farmman from Scotland, basically very poor, but he was an apprentice, finally got to the ships, and he was to the merchant ships. And these ships were called barks, which is basically very tough, seaworthy, stout ships and slow, 300 to 400 tons, big ships. But the North Sea has always been known as a vicious place. And he sailed these barks up and down along that coast, and it was treacherous, untracked, and treacherous. There wasn't a sea in the world that was going to test him that these seas taught him, and that helped him massively later on. As you rightly said, he chose the Royal Navy instead of he already had a career mapped out for him on these barks. He would have done very, very well considering where he came from. But he went back. He was happy to go backwards to become an able seaman again in the Royal Navy, because he wanted to experience more and see what was out there.
And his poor wife, he married Elizabeth Batts, and she was loyal to him, and he was loyal to her. Unlike most other guys in the Navy who had a woman in every port, Captain Cook actually was loyal to his wife for all of their lives. And they did have 6 children, but I think she spent a lot of time on her own.
Yeah, she more than half of the marriage. But sadly, or I don't know how you say it, but she outlived 6 of them. In other words,
him and 5 kids.
Yeah, no, there were 6 children. So yeah, she outlived 7 of them.
Oh, wow.
She outlived him, James Cook, plus all 6 of the children.
Wow.
How hectic is that, Sham?
Yeah, all of his children died before having children of their own. So there are no descendants of Captain James Cook anywhere in the world either. So he went famously, and we're going to skip ahead here to when he was commissioned to do the scientific voyage into the Pacific, where they wanted to monitor the crossing of Venus, the transit from Tahiti, which he then led. And on this ship was famously a guy who he had a bit of a struggle with in terms of who was in charge. It turned out that this other guy, whose name escapes me for the moment, but this guy in the HMS Endeavour thought he could be the captain because he was of higher social class than Cook. But he spent most of the time in his cabin vomiting because he got seasick. And also 2 guys who he sent onto a piece of land near Cape Horn on the South American coast died of cold. And after that, this guy's authority was completely shot. So it was definitely Captain Cook at that point.
Sadly, Gareth, that's something that played out, and was the class rankings were still very very strong. So
Joseph Banks, that's the guy's name.
So he never really got to be made captain. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, could have been the second voyage or the third voyage, but people saw how good he was. So it was very, very unusual. So he was in the Royal Navy, and he was surveying and tracking, as you rightly said, the St. Lawrence River in Canada. And at the time, he observed the eclipse of the sun. And he described it in great detail to the Royal Society. They were blown away. This was extremely unusual for somebody like that, somebody on the ships, to do that for them. So they straight away said, hang on, this is the guy to go on to this voyage that you mentioned, to track Venus, and to go on this massive expedition.
Now, he made use of this expedition to look for the southern continent, which was obviously something that the Earl of Sandwich, who was their chief benefactor, who was paying for the voyage, was quite interested in doing. And he decided while he was down there to go as far as he could south. He was obviously stopped eventually by ice. They didn't even know at that point that salt water could ever freeze. So they realized how cold it was, and he said, look, guys, we can't go much further than this. But famously, they also then did a little tour of the Pacific, and it started really when he sailed to New Zealand and Australia, discovered, in inverted commas, Australia. And this was really, really interesting because up to then, there'd been no Europeans in that part of the world. And I don't think Europeans even knew Australia existed at that point. And he managed to land in Botany Bay, famously, and they stayed there for a couple of days, collected water, timber, fodder, botanical specimens. They explored the surrounding area, discovered the original Aboriginal Australians.
And that's
at
actually,
that point.
He decided to call it Botany Bay.
That's right.
Because of what they found there.
Right, because they were collecting botanical specimens, effectively. And he named several places. I mean, probably hundreds of places all over the world. And actually, they've got a replica of the Endeavour in Queensland Harbour right now, which you can still see, which is an exact replica of the ship that was basically beached there for a couple of weeks.
Oh, because he hit the Great Barrier Reef, so you needed to repair it.
That's correct.
And they called it Cooktown. Is that Cooktown still around, or is
it is? Yeah,
that's amazing.
It still is. So again, you mentioned the Barrier Reef. Part of his job here was to draw these detailed maps so that people who came afterwards could avoid things like the Barrier Reef, which would have scuppered many a ship, and so that they could find their way around. There were places that were completely undiscovered at that point. Places like Hawaii. You know, he turned north on a later voyage and discovered Hawaii.
And he called it the Sandwich Islands after the
Earl of Sandwich.
The Earl of Sandwich.
That's right. So, I mean, there are loads of famous and probably very exciting adventures that we don't want to gloss over here. I mean, it's like a Robert Louis Stevenson novel, you know, Robinson Crusoe type thing, where you just, all these incredible people that he discovered, the people of the Melanesian Islands, of the Polynesian Islands, the Maoris, and some fascinating and quite scary stories too. There were lots of people who died of malaria. There were people who managed to make it through. He famously figured out that scurvy, which was the biggest problem.
This is one of his big things.
I mean, this was before and he's not a scientist or a doctor. He discovered that if you gave your sailors a diet of sauerkraut and lots of fresh citrus, they wouldn't die of scurvy.
And the Oompa band. Sorry.
And they wouldn't die of scurvy. And this was a big deal. And on a later expedition where there were 2 ships, the captain of the other ship didn't follow his very explicit instructions about what they should eat and lost a lot of his crew. And this predates the Royal Navy putting into the regimented rules that these kinds of foods needed to be eaten.
And so cleanliness, ventilation, all of those things.
He was really forward in his thinking, way, way beyond what most people at that time were.
100%. And then he was promoted. When he went back to England, he was promoted to commander, and he was presented to King George III. Then he went back And I think this is where he found the Sandwich Islands, which is Hawaii. He charted Tonga, the Easter Islands. He discovered New Caledonia.
That's right.
And then, finally put this whole thing to bed that Australia and New Zealand are separate and they're not joined to any massive continent. So there was none of that anymore. And that was now finally, something.
It was a big controversy.
100% right, yes.
So eventually he decided, look, I think I'm going to go back now. He was given a rank, an honorary rank. He was put in charge of the Greenwich Hospital, which you actually went and visited as well.
Correct, yes.
Which was a place where old sailors went to retire. And he probably would have stopped there and then and was quite happy to actually just chill. But there was this big move to discover the Northwest Passage, which was supposedly a way to get from the Pacific to the Atlantic via northern Canada. And this was what George III offered £20,000.
Passage.
They offered £20,000, which in today's money is like 50 million rand, to figure out how to get across there. And this was too much for anybody, including Captain Cook, to say, oh, well, I don't want that money. So he decided, let's go. And he started off going east and made his way north towards California. On the way, he discovered the Hawaiian Islands again. And things were getting a bit difficult, let's say, in the Hawaiian Islands, because there were all these people who lived there who kept stealing from him. They'd steal longboats, they'd steal supplies, they'd steal equipment. And he was getting annoyed with this. So he would usually punish them by kidnapping a chief. And then they would ransom the chief by getting the stuff back. He'd say, if you want your chief back, give me my stuff back. And this carried on for a long time. So eventually, these guys were happy to see him go. He tried to go up through Alaska, mapped the coast of Alaska in the Bering Straits, and then realized there was no Northwest Passage. But maybe he could come back when it was summer. Then some of the ice would have melted, and maybe he could try and make his way through.
And sorry, this is one of his great strengths. Many discoverers, they would head back to at the time continental Europe, whoever they were, but he pushed on. So in all his voyages, I think he was gone north of 2 years. Some of them, they were 3-year passage,
absolutely.
and he was relentless in terms of, he was a genuine discoverer.
That's exactly right. And it's interesting that he decided, instead of going back to Europe at this point, to go back to the Hawaiian Islands, where he had already kind of upset the locals. They weren't happy with him. He landed on the largest island, and it coincided with a festival that they were having, a harvest festival. And coincidentally, the ship that he was on, the HMS Resolution, had lost its foremast, I think, and he needed then to have that replaced. So they went to the island, tried to find some trees. Him and his crew had already pissed off the people of the island sufficiently. And these Hawaiians were not thrilled that he and his men were now starting to cut down trees and interrupt their harvest festival and all the rest of it. So they became quite aggressive. They stole a boat, and he decided he was going to do what he'd done before, which is to kidnap the chief. So the chief came along, because he thought, oh, well, he's just going to be a guest on the ship because this had happened before. But slowly the word spread that he was actually being kidnapped. And more warriors and other chiefs on the island started to come out of the jungle, and they started to follow Cook down to the beach. Now, at this point, you would think he should have looked around and gone, okay, I'm going to be outnumbered here. I need to just quietly get back to my ship. But he had become a little bit high on his own supply, and he'd started to believe that he was immortal. And he had been worshipped by some of the people on some of these islands. So maybe he did think he was immortal. Either way, by the time he realized what was going on, it was too late. There'd been a bit of a fight that had broken out. I think 12 of the Hawaiians were killed, about 4 of the Marines were killed, and he was in the middle of this. And I think these guys just decided it's enough.
They killed him.
Well, they stabbed him and stabbed him and stabbed him and passed the knife around until everyone had a go at stabbing him. So he was dead long before they stopped stabbing him. But either way, they then didn't stop at that. They decided to then make a fire pit, and put his body in it and burn it. They say, they being the sailors who were with him, they say that the four of the chiefs ate his heart so that they could absorb his strength and his power. So there was cannibalism here. He was disemboweled, obviously. The only parts that they managed to find of his body were a bit of his skull and his hands. And then I think they took those and tried to bury them somewhere at sea.
And there's obelisks now where that all happened.
Yeah,
that you can go and see in his, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there's a memorial. I think there's a little marker in the shoreline where they suppose that all of this happened. But that was the end of the great Captain Cook, eaten.
By the Hawaiians.
So, you find paradise and sometimes it's just not what you expect.
Yeah, he cooked his goose.
It's just funny that someone called Cook should be eaten. Maybe that's a little bit of irony. But if you look at the map of all of his routes, it's absolutely incredible how far this man traveled. He pretty much explored every corner of the globe, and at that point, every corner of the unexplored globe. So his legacy lives on, and
he set new standards, Gareth. I mean, in discovery and seamanship, to your point, and also in navigation, in cartography. And other thing as well is that the care of his men, the amount of people that he lost to scurvy, I think was negligible. I think there was one person on one of his voyages. And also his relations, just after your story, maybe it didn't sound so great, but his relations with the indigenous people that he came across was always friendly.
Mostly.
Yeah. So it was mostly friendly and you can see in the legacy, I mean, there's so many cooks.
He only became very belligerent much, much later. I think towards the end of that third voyage, he just was a bit pissed off.
Yeah, and some people said he might have had a little bit of a mental disease or something like that, because the last voyage he was quite different. But interestingly enough, NASA have used the names of his ships to name their shuttles.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's absolutely
the Endeavour,
right.
The Discovery.
So obviously, I mentioned some of the places that have been named after him, but the Cook Islands, Cook Strait, the Cook Inlet, Cook Crater on the Moon. Mount Cook is the highest summit in New Zealand, named after him.
Is that 104 meters high?
There's another Mount Cook on the border between Alaska and Canada, which is also named after him. And they're planning actually to build a big monument for his landing place in Botany Bay, which, the Australians regard him very highly. Of course, there's also controversy because a number of countries have said that they don't want to commemorate him too much because of the way he treated the locals. Although his contributions far outweigh any of the criticism that you could possibly give to him. But he was really one of the best examples of the Age of Enlightenment.
Yeah.
If you think about it, combining qualities of a scientist with the qualities of a sailor and helping so many different things to be discovered, to be written into the annals of history, to be recorded and documented early on. It was pretty much the age of discovery. And
opening
Captain
up the world.
Was at the forefront of it.
Yeah,
it's incredible. Thanks for listening to this episode of Blind History. Every episode is available on the Cliff Central app, cliffcentral.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the next episode, he got together with Joan of Arc, and from about 1427 until about 1435, he was the commander of the French army, and he managed to repel the English. And it wasn't just England, it was the Burgundians as well. And he was eventually appointed Marshal of France.